Is it possible for one man to cause the downfall of an entire country? The answer would be a resounding yes. Grigori Rasputin's life did just that. Rasputin had magical healing power and, ironically, dubbed himself the Second Coming of Christ. The story of his healing and psychic powers went so far that it pushed him to the heart of the royal family, the Romanov family. Rasputin manipulated the Russian government with the power the Romanov family bestowed him, had a hand in the sufferings of the Russian people with his many decisions, and ultimately contributed to the downfall of the Romanov dynasty, from his early life to his priesthood, as well as his several attempted assassinations. This video has it all, so get your popcorn ready and stay tuned for the truly thrilling adventures of this man. But before going in too deep, let's have a quick look into the early life of this man. Early life. Grigori Rasputin was born on January 20th, 1869, in a small village in Siberia called Pokrovskoy. At that time, Siberia was not a favorable environment to anybody, as it was always very cold, and survival was always a battle for the little people of this village. For this reason, it was seen as a dumping ground for criminals, and those who were there due to their religious or political beliefs. Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin, his father was a small farmer and courier, and his mother, Anna Parshikova, gave birth to 7 children who all died at childbirth or an early age due to the harsh weather, leaving Grigori as the miracle child. Grigori performed many miracles for the people of Siberia even as a child, like when he pointed out who stole his father's horse, or countless times he would heal the sick. People revered him and saw him as the second coming of Christ, while others called him demonic and dealing with the devil. In his youthful years, many believed him to be the actual devil because of his nasty behaviors. At age 28, he married a girl from the village and had 3 kids with her, 2 named after his dead siblings, Maria and Dmitri. Grigori was a heavy drinker and at one point cheated on his wife. He ran away from home when he was caught with a stolen horse, and instead of owning up to his mistake, he sought asylum from a nearby local monastery. It was at this place he took his charge of God's evangelism seriously. He was made a convert and told to change from his evil ways. He met a man called Makarij, who he took as a mentor. Grigori abandoned his family in the village to continue the works of God, going far places to evangelize. Many believed he had a run-in with the Cleistes and was made a member. The Cleistes believed salvation could only be attained through purging themselves. They would perform many rituals by choking themselves to the point of death, and get off this and eventually get on with their desires to sleep with whoever was laid beside them. Several months passed and Grigori returned to his home in Siberia as a changed man. His eyes looked more serious, which made people fear him. He had begged his wife for the basement of his house to host his religious friends to continue their desired sexual romps. The devil in St. Petersburg. One day in his village, Rasputin claimed the Holy Mary appeared and told him to visit the royal family, as they would need his help soon. This claim was absurd and, honestly, very mad. It was unlikely he, a lowly peasant, would be of help to the royal family. It might spring your mind how he could make his way into the heart of the Romanov family. Well, his monastery mentor was formerly the family's religious advisor. He wrote a letter of introduction to his friend in Petersburg on behalf of Rasputin, and soon after, he made his way to the city. He was met by Bishop Hermogenes and another high priest, Sergei Trifanov, also known as Iliador. Both men were shocked by his appearance. He looked unkempt and smelled really bad. However, this changed after they were able to witness his healing powers. They claimed he was a man touched by God himself. During his time in the city, he became close friends with Princess Melissa and Anastasia of Montenegro, also known as the Crow Sisters, due to the shape of their noses. They were believed to dabble in the dark arts as they weren't exactly Russians and could still marry into the royal family. Ultimately, they were treated as outcasts, so it wouldn't be surprising that Rasputin became close with the lovely ladies. Rasputin's arrival at the royal palace was perfect timing, as Tsarina Alexandra Romanov had just lost her spiritual advisor, Dr. Philip. She believed he'd helped her have a son after giving birth to only girls. She claimed on his deathbed that he had told her she would meet another spiritual advisor very soon, and he would continue his work. The Crow Sisters, who had found Alexandra's previous spiritual advisor, introduced Rasputin to Alexandra and her husband Tsar Nicholas II at a party. She found it difficult to trust the peasant, but all this changed after hearing his many healing stories. She knew she wanted him, especially for her son Alexei, who was ill with hemophilia. a condition that prevents blood from clotting. Therefore, the littlest scratch on this boy would cause high blood loss. The boy scraped his knee one day and kept on bleeding. Rasputin came to the palace untold of what had happened, and he demanded to see the boy and wanted to heal him. He claimed he was told by God, but in reality, he most likely was told by the Crow sisters. Unknown to them, the guards and the royal family were in awe. He demanded the doctors leave him to treat the boy, and surprisingly, Alexei almost immediately started getting healed. However, he stopped the doctors from treating the boy. It stopped the use of aspirin they gave the boy, which caused his blood to thin. After this healing, he was welcomed into the royal palace with open arms. Soon after, he started supplying Tsar Nicholas II with drugs like opium and cocaine to treat him. They would both get high. He also treated Alexandra for any pain and anxiety. This got them addicted to him, always requesting him at the royal palace. They became very close that he sometimes referred to them as Mama and Papa. He became close to the kids also and prayed with them. This made the nanny nervous because of the rumor that Rasputin had raped a maid. Alexandra did not believe the maid and fired her. When the nanny got too concerned and tried to get Rasputin out of the palace, she was fired because the kids liked him and whined to their parents that she was mean. Rasputin at this point had found his way to the heart of the family and could get away with anything. The cult following. Rasputin had an apartment in St. Petersburg where he had regular meetings with his followers. They would sit around a table and discuss things. Many times during their meetings, he would start mumbling, and all his followers would keep quiet to listen to what he was saying. He would suddenly look down and write whatever was on his mind, saying it was laid there by God himself. For some unexplained reasons, women found this act much more attractive. They believed in him so much that they would offer themselves for him to sleep with them. He was so popular that if this man were alive during this modern age and had a YouTube channel like ours, he would have millions of subscribers. And among them would be Olga Lokhtina, a woman who left her husband and kids to live in his apartment. There, they performed many weird acts. A report from someone was that Olga would hold Rasputin's genital and speak to it, saying, "You are Christ and I am yours." All this made the police interested in him, and they would follow him around. They reported that he would purchase services from prostitutes every day and take them to the bathhouse. Many could not believe he went to the bathhouse so much and still smelled bad daily. Apparently, he would buy a private room in the bathhouse where he and the woman would undress and beat her so much with his leather belt. After he was done, he would sleep with her and leave, not touching the water. Rasputin sounded like a madman, as he would go on and on about how he had demons inside of him. When Bishop Hermogenes and Iliador heard this saying, it did not bode well for them, as they were responsible for bringing him to the St. Petersburg people. So one day they met him and accused him of dealing with the devil. Through this, he had his unexplainable healing powers. Both priests confronted him with their accusations and brought along a giant wooden crucifix and beat him almost to death with it, just as he would beat the prostitutes. Rasputin reported this violent act to the Tsarina, and both of them were exiled. Rasputin needed a break and took a journey back to Siberia. The Assassination Attempt. Iliador was still not pleased by these decisions and was still willing to kill Rasputin. So, he hired a prostitute, Hyonia Guseva, to have him killed. She was a disfigured woman with her nose cut off by a former client. Iliador told her of how Rasputin treated other prostitutes. On a fateful day, Rasputin received a letter, and on his way to the post office to reply to the letter, he saw the woman standing in front of his house. He walked up to her to give her alms and preach to her. When she was close enough, she pulled out a knife and stabbed Rasputin several times non-stop. She cut him open so much. There was space for her to dip her hands inside him, which she did, and pulled out his intestines. It was, however, that same day Franz Ferdinand was killed, and this and many other events began the events of World War I. Rasputin was not able to stand beside Tsar and Tsarina during this time to advise them, as he was in a local hospital being treated of his many wounds. He heard of the impending war and wrote a letter to Nicholas and begged him not to go to war, claiming it would be of great doom to the country. The Tsar turned a deaf ear to his advice because this was the first time the people would praise him. He was willing to go to war because of their praises. The Tsar went with his soldiers to war with his men, and Alexandra was left alone to rule. After his treatment, Rasputin went to the palace to stand beside Alexandra and give his advice to her. Within 2 years, Rasputin placed several men into places of power, but he was uneducated, so the men he had employed needed to be more competent. This had a great toll on the Russian people. The war, as well, was devastating. Millions of soldiers lost their lives in the war, and the cost of living doubled. The people had had enough. Therefore, a revolution was impending. The beginning of the end. Day by day, Rasputin's health kept deteriorating. His body could no longer keep up after the assassination attempt. He got so weak he could no longer heal people as he usually did. In his journal, he declared he would die soon, which was God's will. He announced to the people that his death would serve as a blood sacrifice for the people of Russia, which would symbolize the death of Christ on the cross. He, however, wrote to Alexandra and cursed her that if death came from one of her family members, they would all be slaughtered by the people of Russia in the years to come after his death. Felix Yusupov, Alexandra's nephew, was one of the many men who sought for the death of Rasputin. He got word of his promiscuous lifestyle with the prostitutes. Yusupov was married to Irina, one of the most beautiful women in St. Petersburg. To lure Rasputin to his home, he told him Irina suffered from sex addiction and needed purging from the demons inside her. After he gained Rasputin's trust, Yusupov met with his co-conspirators and planned to assassinate him. Rasputin arrived at the Yusupov mansion and was taken to the basement and said Irina would be down with them to begin her healing process. During the wait, Rasputin was offered a cup of wine, but what he would not know was the drink was laced with cyanide. 2 hours had passed and Rasputin was still on his 2 feet. Yusupov believed that he alone could not kill the holy man, so he ran upstairs and back down, only this time he had a revolver in his hand. He pointed it at Rasputin, who was not moved and had a blank expression. He shot him and fell to the ground. They all went upstairs to celebrate, leaving Rasputin's lifeless body to rot in the basement. Some hours later, Yusupov felt a sense of dread and ran, along with a doctor, to check the body of the man he'd shot. The doctor was about to check for a heartbeat when Rasputin opened his eyes and jumped on Yusupov. He pushed the almost dead man off him and ran to tell the others. Before they reached the basement, he was gone. They saw him trying to crawl out from the courtyard, and then Yusupov shot him right there in the head. The 5 other men with him pulled out their revolvers and shot him repeatedly to secure his place in hell. They stuffed his body in the trunk of a car and buried him in the ice near a river. Later, when they checked again for his body, they noticed his hands had been pressed against the ice, as if trying to claw his way out. People believed he might have come back to life one more time, so they dug up his body and burned his remains. The people, however, preserved his genitals and is now on display in the museum in St. Petersburg. For whatever reason, we aren't so sure. A little while after his death, his curse on the Romanov family did come to pass, as they were all killed during the Baltic Revolution. This concludes the life of the holy man Rasputin. If you think that was interesting, tune in for more intriguing videos. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell to get the daily update for our new videos. You can also leave names of historical figures you would like us to discuss in the comment section. As always, see you in the next video.